Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar for Ready Set Math. It's your launchpad to targeted and purposeful instruction with our instructional resource known as Ready Set Math. We're thrilled to have you join us today. Throughout our time together, we will be using the Q&A in your Zoom features. This is a feature that you'll find in your menu bar or your toolbar. Please feel free to drop questions in there so that our other client support sales specialist that's on the call with us today, Crystal Bissing, will be able to answer those questions. You can drop those questions in there. She'll provide answers as we go, but we also have probably a good 20 minutes at the end of the webinar that will be open for questions. But definitely use that Q&A feature for any questions related to Ready Set Math, and that will also help us to better manage the questions efficiently. Make sure we address as many of those questions that you have during the session and also during that Q&A session at the end of the webinar. If you do encounter any technical difficulties, please feel free to use the chat box just for any technical difficulties and private message Crystal Bissing, and she'll be able to help assist you as soon as possible in case there's anything that maybe you're not seeing correctly or if something just seems off with your connection. Again, thank you so much for choosing to spend your time with us today. We look forward to bringing you more information and some insight around what has really become a powerful instructional resource for districts across the nation over the past couple of years. All right, so like I said, our time together is going to be focused on providing just a really good overview of Ready Set Math, how the instructional resource is connected to all of our research and our instructional and assessment practices, but also how it can support your instructional needs across so many different environments and tiers of instruction that you have that you're supporting in your district. So with that being said, Ready Set Math does support and enhance math instruction across many tiers and environments within a district. It is grounded in our math recovery research and pedagogy, as I mentioned. It does support primary, intermediate, and middle school aged classrooms. Not necessarily always tied and connected to the core, but looking at what those possible intervention needs are. And we're going to take a look at a document that outlines that as well in just a little bit. It also can provide guidance in decision making on what to do next with your students. Okay, like I said, our resource, so the resource of Ready Set Math is tied to our research. And for those of you that may be familiar with our courses through our specialist level courses or advantage courses, all of the instructional resources are connected to our research and our instructional and assessment practices. Those courses go into depth, the content and the guiding principles of instruction and assessment. But if you have not taken our courses, our Math Recovery textbook series can definitely provide some really deep and comprehensive background about each of the content, those specific topics and domains, and the content that each of those modules do cover. So you are able to purchase any of these texts through our store if you have not taken our courses. So those textbook series are available as a separate purchase as well. And know that our courses do provide an in-depth study of each of those topics as well. So if that's something that you're interested in, we can always follow up with a different conversation afterwards. Okay. All right, like I said, Ready Set Math is a resource that supports elementary, middle, and upper grades across the board, depending on where and what your students are in need of support with. So this document here that you see is available. And I'll again show you once we jump into the resource. You're able to download and print this as a resource to just help you make decisions around which module would be appropriate and right for your students. So you'll see along the left side, we have guiding questions for you to consider that may be student needs that you need to support those students with. And then in the middle, those are the modules that are going to support those needs. You're going to notice that the modules are colored and some are clustered by color. That's because those are topics and domains that have are related. So these that are highlighted in yellow are three modules that all focus and support teaching and learning around the concept of early addition and subtraction concepts, ranging from counting-based strategies all the way up to strategies and basic facts to 20. And then you're going to notice on the far right side how these modules align to grade level bands, whether that be core content that you typically see in those grade level bands, or extension beyond the core content for those grade levels, or maybe intervention that would be where you would be intervening in those key topics and domains within those grade level bands. So again, going back to that cluster of the addition and subtraction modules, you're going to notice that they support core content, extension, and also intervention, depending on the grade level bands, whether it be pre-K, kindergarten, primary, intermediate, or those middle grades. All right, so we're going to jump into the resource now. The resource is a digitally accessed resource. So you're going to notice I am on it's all accessed through a member's account through our website. So you're going to see here all 10 of the modules. So this is what we regard as our home page for Ready, Set, Math, or like your opening page. So that document that we were just looking at, which is which module will meet my student needs and choosing. So you're able to download and print that right here from the website, from that opening page. So you can download and print that document for you to use as a reference tool as well. Also, just some general information about what's all included in a module. And those modules, again, we're going to dive into and look more closely at what is all included in a module. But just for your own purposes to come back to and be reminded of what's included in a module, that is also available here for you to review. And then lastly, like I said, there's a lot of components within that module. So this is just kind of helping you navigate that digital resource. And again, selecting a module, diving into a module. These are other videos that you can go back and watch and listen to help give you some additional information beyond or after this webinar. All right, so those are some resources there. So what you see on the right-hand side is the full collection of the 10 modules. Okay, these modules range from early number concepts, addition subtraction concepts, place value and base 10 concepts. This is where the multi-digit addition subtraction that's grounded in place value. You'll see those in purple, our multiplication division concepts, and our fraction concepts. Okay, so you'll see those clustered by color. The modules, for those of you that are familiar with our courses, do have a correlation to those courses. But again, if you have not taken our courses, there's a lot of professional development embedded right in to the digital resource to support educators using these instructional resources to help you with better understanding the purpose and intent of the module, of certain lessons and activities that we're doing or materials that are used. And we're going to see those components that are built in as we dig into a module. So please know that if you have not taken our courses, the instructional resource is intended to be applicable and very user-friendly to all educators, regardless of your engagement with our courses. Now, we do understand that even that the depth of knowledge and understanding does at times enhance and elevate your ability and implementation of the resource. So if at any point while you're using the instructional resources and you get to a point where I just feel like there's something more to learn, right here on that opening page here, it's highlighted here, professional development page, feel free to explore our course opportunities and options that you have to take your learning to a deeper level. So when you click that, it will take you to the professional development opportunities on our website as well. Okay. All right. So, like I said, we're going to dive into a module. And the module we're going to choose right now to dig into and looking at how the modules are structured and organized and what's all included in that module is addition, subtraction to 10, strategies and basic facts. Again, I'm going to jump into one module, but each of the 10 modules are structured and designed in the same exact way. So when you open up the modules, you're going to see this module kind of landing page or home page for the module. So on the far left side here, you're going to see details of the overview of the module as a whole, starting first with the module learning goal. So the overall goal of the module is outlined here. And then going into more detail about what that learning goal is, this is where you see the description of that learning goal. So you're going to see more detail be given. Okay. And then the prerequisite knowledge right here is just giving you some insight into what the students should already have in place in order to best set them up for success with the instructional resources in this module. So if you're finding that students are struggling with the lessons and activities in this particular module, it's always a good idea to take a look at that prerequisite knowledge and make sure that those things are in place. Again, this is a resource that was intended and developed to be a supplemental resource. So it pairs really nicely and complements many of or much of your already district data that you may have from either STAR assessments or NWA assessments or classroom level assessments that speak kind of a very similar language in these numeracy topics and domains to help you determine if at the overall goal, looking at that module title, if this is a need for your students, and then looking at that prerequisite knowledge, I'm sure there's a lot of district level data or classroom level data that will also help you determine do your students have strengths and have these particular topics and domains in place as well. If you would like to know more about how to use your district level data in making decisions and determinations with the resource, you can always set up a follow-up phone call with one of us. Or if it is a resource that you do decide to purchase and are implementing in your district, we have opportunities to work with coaches and implementation specialists to help customize that training for you as well to be able to do that. So know that that's also an option as well. All right, back to digging into the detail and structure of the module. So like I mentioned, this overall learning goal is outlined on the left side. That overall goal is broke down into sub goals. So there's an overall goal, but there's a learning progression that students move through in order to achieve that learning goal. So you're going to see on the right-hand side the breakdown of that overall learning into these sub goals. So each sub goal has a title for you to identify just on a very surface level, high level, what that sub goal is focusing on. But when you want to dig into the details of that sub goal, you'll open up that description box by clicking on that plus sign. This goes into detail about the learning that will take place in this sub goal. Okay. Each module has at minimum 4 sub goals and no more than 5, and then at times no more than 5 sub goals. So you're going to see here this module has a progression of 5 sub goals. The sub-goals, again, are aligned to our developmental progressions of how children develop a sense of, and in this case, strategies and basic facts to 10. Okay. Next, we have the student knowledge checks. The student knowledge checks are assessment, kind of like assessment tasks or kind of student interview tasks to help you better determine if this is an appropriate place in the module for you to start with your students. Because it's a developmental progression, not all students will necessarily need to start at subgoal A. So these knowledge checks are assessment tasks that are associated specifically to the learning goal of that subgoal, and you can use them to inform both the selection of the appropriateness of this subgoal as a place to start. You can also come back to these knowledge checks as a means to assess and determine if students have gained facility in the particular learning goal of that subgoal. Again, these are tasks that will look very similar to probably other tasks in your class and your other curricular resources. And for those of you that have taken our courses, you're going to notice they're very similar to the student interview tasks on the comprehensive assessment that you are trained in how to administer and analyze when you take our courses. The student knowledge check is not only the task, but we also provide guidance on what to do if students do or don't know, or if they demonstrate understanding or no understanding. Okay. All right, then we get into the meat of the resource. So the meat, and when I say the meat of the resource, it's the lesson guides and activity guides. Okay, and you'll access those for each of the subgoals by clicking the instructional resource button. When you click the instructional resource button, you open up to the full collection of lesson guides and independent activity instructions. Okay, these are intended to be mini lessons and activities that are selected based on student needs and learning goals. These instructional activities are organized across 3 modes of instruction. As you see here, the large group instructional activities and the small group instructional activities and independent instructional activities. Large group activities and small group activities are designed with an inquiry mode of instruction, meaning they are more conversational based. These lesson guides are going to provide the educator a series of questions and prompts to facilitate discourse with the students. It's also going to support the educator tips and suggestions of how to continue to take those conversations to a deeper level. The difference between large group and small group instructional activities is the kind of the level of sophistication that is built into the lesson. Meaning, a large group instructional activity typically will use or not use an instructional setting or manipulative, more in a way of modeling strategies and using that manipulative, um, fostering on the student's end a level of visualization and less support with that instructional tool. Whereas the small group instructional activities are typically a scaffold from the learning that students will experience in a large group lesson. So in essence, typically, when you facilitate a large group lesson, you may notice either all of your students may not be finding success in that lesson, or you have a small group of students not finding success in that lesson. There's a related small group instructional activity that you can then move to support those students as that lesson builds in scaffolds of support to then release more support to the student and supports the teacher with more intentional questioning and prompting and probing. And then once they're demonstrating success in the small group lesson, transitioning to the large group lesson so that you can release some of that added scaffolded support that you were putting in place for the students, moving to a more sophisticated level of instruction. and learning for the student. So in essence, as you navigate through this instructional resource page, don't get hung up on the large group instructional activities being labeled large group. They can be facilitated in a small group with a small group of students. Similar to a small group instructional activity, it can definitely be facilitated in a large group of students. It just depends on what your students need. So know that if you're an interventionist and you always are working with small groups of students of 3 to 5, all of these lessons are very applicable and able to be used in your work with your students. It's just, in essence, the large group lessons tend to be at a higher level than the small group lessons, where the small group lessons provide more scaffolded support. Okay. The independent instructional activities are more rehearsal mode of instruction, where it's independent of the teacher. And these activities, as we dig into them, you're going to notice aren't a teacher guide. It's just directions for the teacher to make sure that the students know and understand basically how to play that instructional activity. But know that those instructional activities also can be brought into a small group of instruction or even large group as you're introducing that activity. There's a lot of learning opportunities as well. But these independent activities are definitely a great way for you as the educator to take note and observe what students are able to do independent of the teacher. Okay. All right, so we're going to dive into a lesson so you can see how the lesson is structured and organized. So you're going to notice very similar features to the large group and small group lessons. First, starting with the purpose statement. Okay, so really taking note of those purpose statements is you're going to, actually, I'm going to jump back to that sub goal. So this is why the purpose statements are on each of the lessons and activities so that you can notice and see kind of what the learning objective is for each of those lessons or activities. Okay, so you can start to see the interconnectedness between the lessons while you're in there. Okay, so when we're in here, purpose and description at the top, materials. So all of the materials that you would need to facilitate this lesson are listed out. If they are materials that that might be cards or scenario cards, 10 frame cards, numeral cards, those are all included in your digital resource. You're able to download and print. So any material that has this blue download cloud, you're able to click that. It opens up a PDF downloadable document for you to print. Okay. When you hover over them, you're going to see just like a visual of what that will look like when you print them. Now, if you don't want to have to download and print everything that you would need to use in the lessons, that's where we have the companion kits available for a separate purchase. Our companion kits, there's 2 different types. We have a companion kit known as the activity board box set, and those companion kits provide all of these downloadable materials that you would need all throughout the module. The other companion kit are the manipulatives. So as we move into the lessons and you'll see manipulatives used, which are like very common instructional settings and tools that you may have in your district. But those manipulative kits include all the manipulatives that you would use throughout the module. And again, those are companion resources that you would purchase as a separate purchase from the digital resource. Okay. The next part of the lesson guide is the what to say and do. The what to say and do kind of in essence gives the full feel of what this what the learning what the teaching and learning should look like and sound like and feel like for the student and for the teacher. It can be done, it can be taken in a variety of ways for an educator. When you're first getting started with it, there's absolutely many of us that may rely on this more as a script base to guide our teaching. But it really is intended to just help the teacher gain facility in them being able to deliver instruction with their students in a very autonomous way, still honoring the craft and autonomy of a teacher. So what you're going to see here, and what we really encourage educators to do, is use this what to say and do part of the lesson guide for your prep work of the lesson to get a good handle on what is the instructional flow of this lesson going to look like and sound like. Some things that you may want to kind of copy and paste into your lesson plans or screenshot into your lesson plans would be if there is a progression of tasks and questions or prompts that you would definitely want to be able to easily reference. Or if you're somebody that teaches with your computer or your tablet readily accessible, having that lesson guide up for you to quickly refer to. Okay. The other thing to take note of as you're preparing for the lesson, these are going to be components that you're going to want to engage with before you teach. And those are the light bulb moments and the magnifying glass moments. Okay. First, our light bulb moments. These light bulb moments include things such as considerations for the instructional decision making, your management tips, and also opportunities to deepen your content knowledge. So, like in this case, we're directing the teacher to use 5-frame pattern cards and display those cards with the 5 dots and prompt them with the let's take a look at this. This is introducing the setting. This light bulb moment is giving the teacher kind of a better understanding as to why this step is important. This provides an opportunity for you to explore the 5-frame and become familiar with its structure. This ties to one of our guiding principles of instruction and always making sure that we're introducing a setting to the students before we just use the setting. Okay, so those light bulb moments are those in the moment coaching tips and support for the teacher. And again, you just hover over those and it just gives you a lot of good information in those. Again, not necessarily something that you would be engaging with while you're teaching your students, but definitely a component of the resource that you would engage in while you're planning and prepping for the lesson. Okay. The other component I want to bring attention to are the magnifying glass moments. These magnifying glass moments include instructional look-fors, observations, guiding questions, bring attention to some anticipated student responses. These are provided for you to inform your moment-to-moment instructional decision-making. So whenever you see these magnifying glass moments, these are those moments when there is something to pause in the moment of instruction because there's something to take note of. Um, Typically, I like to coach educators when you see that magnifying glass moment. That's a good time to be maybe making some anecdotal notes on the students that you're working with, because there's something to possibly observe. So like in this case, when you're displaying that card with 3 dots, you're asking how many they see, how many more they would need to make 5. What you're watching for is students who may not have a response or need to count. If they need support, encourage them to use their fingers to solve or check their answer because we don't want to always meet them with a level of frustration. So those magnifying glass moments are supporting you in what you're watching for, how you would respond, and then eventually where you want to move beyond that. Again, always looking to move them and advance them to higher levels of sophistication in their learning. Okay. Um, then as we move down here, you're going to see the related activities. These related activities are, like in this case, we jumped into a large group lesson. The related activities would move you to a small group lesson if there is a group of students that just need a little more support. When you click that, it's going to take you right to that small group lesson. Okay. Now, that large group lesson was using 10 frames. That's a much more structured instructional setting. This small group lesson is using finger patterns. This is a setting that is much more easily manipulated by the students and supporting them to construct these combinations of 5 using their fingers. Okay, again, more scaffolded in support. As students start to gain facility with that, then you can move back to that large group lesson because it allows for you to more easily scaffold away from the use of those supportive settings, always working toward facility of those combinations of 5. And again, you're going to see the same structure of this lesson guide with the what to say and do. Lots of great meaty light bulb moments here for you to take advantage of. And then the related activities, you're going to notice the large group lessons. That's if you're wanting to move to a more sophisticated lesson, or if you feel that they're ready for some independent practice. This would be a game that you can introduce to the group of students. And we're going to click into that so you can see that. Introduce this to the group of students, get them started, and then release them to be independent. This allows for you opportunity to observe what they can do independent of your instruction. Okay. Now, like I said, the independent activities are structured differently than the small group and large group lessons because it's an activity. So you're not going to see a what to say and do. You're going to see just straight up directions. Okay. The directions are also, so the directions here are your teacher directions for how you would be teaching or facilitating an instructional moment of getting the students introduced to the activity and getting them started. When you're wanting to just release the students or have this activity available for students to play multiple times outside of your instruction, you're able to download and print student directions. So the student directions take those teacher directions and make sure that they're in more like student friendly language. So you're going to see those student directions able to be downloaded and printed here. And again, anything that the students need in order to play that activity, able to be downloaded and printed here. Okay. One thing that I will make note of about the student directions, the only module that the student directions are not included in is the very first module for early number concepts. The reason for that being is because those lessons and activities are typically targeted toward pre-K or even early kindergarten age students, which reading is not necessarily something that they would be needing to do. So the student directions are kind of an obsolete material need for those age groups because the teachers would be facilitating the explanation of those activities and possibly providing some picture prompt cards for the students to be reminded of what it is that they're doing in order to play that activity. So you just wanting to make sure that for that first module, nothing's missing. It's just the student directions are not there for age developmental reasons. Okay. All right. And then in this case, you see some variations. Some lessons and activities will have identified variations in the lesson. These variations just allow for you to kind of make some minor tweaks or changes to the activity to just kind of extend the life or put a different twist on it, because none of the lessons and activities are intended to be a one and done kind of lesson. These are lessons and activities that you can constantly be revisiting and using to guide your instruction as it relates to that purpose statement until students are finding success. Okay. All right. Now, as you kind of click around into that sub goal, you kind of like move in and through all of those activities. So you're going to notice that there is something up here called the breadcrumb trail. This just allows for you to easily navigate back to any part of the module that you need to, or even the resource as a whole. So we're in an independent activity right now. If you wanted to navigate back to the sub goal page that has the overview of all the lessons and activities, you can just click back into that sub goal A. If you wanted to click back into the module where all the sub goals are outlined, then you can click back into the module. And if you wanted to click all the way back to our home page, then you click our 1, 2, 3 rainbow. Okay. One thing that I did want to take a moment to just bring attention to, each of the sub goals have a home communication and engagement support. This home communication engagement provides support to you as the teacher for your communication about the learning, the focus of the learning with within this sub-goal for families, as well as possibly some classroom teachers that you may be collaborating with or sharing students with, but also ways that parents can engage with learning around the particular sub-goal objective at home. So this page is not intended to just be printed and sent home, because there's some like communication to you as the educator and how to use this to support your home communication engagement. So these bullet points are really great talking points that you can copy and paste directly into like your parent newsletters, emails, or other forms of communication that you have with parents or guardians and classroom teachers. These bullet points are parent friendly, really easy to understand ways for you to communicate the learning goals of this sub goal. And then the second page, on the left hand side, you're going to see some suggestions and ways that you can make the activities within the resource accessible. And then on the right hand side, these are opportunities for you to give as suggestions to parents and maybe classroom teachers in how they can engage in the learning beyond the activities that you're doing in the module. Oftentimes, these are going to be really basic suggestions of like conversations they can be having. Take a look, like when you're at the grocery store, what are some things that they can be bringing their child's attention to see and recognize that math is all around them. So these opportunities to extend learning, I guess you could qualify them as like homework, but they typically are just discussion prompts, and maybe family games that they can incorporate into game nights and things like that. But really bringing math alive within the home. Those are what those suggestions will do. Okay. All right, so that was the home communication. And then we're back to our opening page. Again, each of these modules is structured and set up in the same way. We're going to jump into some detail about purchasing. But before I leave this page, I just want to bring attention to when we talk about purchasing, what you're purchasing when we regard a seat. That seat gives you access into each of the individual modules. So if you wanted, as an educator, to have access to all 10 of the modules, you would be purchasing a seat in each of the digital modules. As a district, you have the opportunity to purchase multiple seats in each of the modules, and that is where we're going to jump to next. Okay, so there are 3 ways to purchase and manage the digital seats for each of the modules. First being through an individual's account. So why would somebody want to purchase something individually? Well, if you are purchasing it for yourself and it's your own money, it's just something that you want to buy for yourself, then you are able to do that purchase through your own math recovery account. By doing that, you also personally own the access to those modules for whatever modules you buy seats for. You own them for yourself. They remain linked to your personal account. So no matter where you go or where you teach, you have access to those resources for a lifetime. Now, with that type of purchase, you can only purchase 1 seat in each module. And that purchase is done through your math recovery account in the math recovery store directly from your member center. Okay. If you're in like in a department or a building, you can purchase seats in a module through a building account. Now, why would somebody want to purchase through a building account? If you are, again, like a department, like a special ed department or a math department or a building, that you have your own funding and the purchasing of those seats is coming through the avenues of that specific funding, we're able to create building or department accounts. The seats purchased are owned by that building or department within the district. You are able to access that access to those seats remain linked to that building or department, again, for a lifetime. All of the purchasing of these seats is not a subscription or a membership. It is just like a building of inventory. You're purchasing this as an item for you to forever be able to use and have access to. So when you're purchasing that as a building, you're purchasing a collection of seats for each of those modules, and then you're able to manage who sits in that seat through a building's educator list. So all of that would be managed through a building dashboard, and that all is very easy to set up, giving permission to a building manager where that person would be able to turn on and turn off the access for those seats for their educators who are linked to their building accounts. Now, a building can purchase multiple seats for a module. So those are purchased and managed by the building manager within that building or department account. Okay, and then the third way to purchase seats would be through a district account. Now, this is if the funding is more is from a district standpoint, and then the management of those seats will be handled from the district level. Okay, so those seats purchased in each of the modules are owned by the district, and the access to those seats again remain linked to the district's account for a lifetime. So that inventory of those seats for each of the modules that you're purchasing stay with the district forever. Again, a district can purchase multiple seats per module, and those seats just get added into like their inventory for those modules. They're able to be managed again from a district dashboard. Now, district purchased seats have the ability to be distributed to individual educators within the district educator list, or they can distribute multiple seats within a module to building or departments. Why this is important to know, because sometimes it's the district money that is purchasing the seats, but the district doesn't want to have to manage the use of the seats, and they just want to give all of those seats that were purchased for, say, a special ed department or a math department, and they can just give all those seats for those modules to that department, and then the department manager can take care of providing access to the individual educators from their department account. Okay, so there's some flexibility with how the district would manage those seats as well. Again, all of these different options for purchasing and managing seats, either Crystal or I, as your client support and sales specialist, we're always happy to help you better understand what mode of purchase would be most beneficial to you. All right. So that brings us to the end of our info session and open up for questions and answers from everybody that is on the call. So please feel free to drop your questions into the Q&A using that Q&A tool on your toolbar for Zoom, and we'll watch for those to come through. And I see that some questions were dropped in during the presentation. So I'm just going to take a peek at those if there's anything that we want to speak to. Yes. Great question. The addition and subtraction with multi-digit. So, because that is grounded and focusing on mental strategies, that's focusing on kind of 2-digit up to 3-digit addition and subtraction. So the tasks do go larger than 100 in the addition and subtraction to 100 modules. You're going to notice there are sub goals that go beyond totals of 100, but really focusing on the reasonableness of those tasks so that students can compute those numbers using mental strategies. And then there are lessons and activities that do support the introduction of notating strategies that help offload the mental computation for students as numbers get more kind of complex and less reasonable to compute mentally. And then in terms of middle school, the content that's going to be more aligned to their core content will be the fractions concepts. And again, this is all supporting the like algebraic topics in the middle school grades. So looking at multiplication, division, where oftentimes that is the breakdown of the foundation in being able to compute um, in in those equations and in an algebra, that their basic fact knowledge tends to be where they start to break down in their understanding. But then also the fraction concepts are going to very much support um, the work being done at middle school. Yeah, great question. I see a question. Is there any easy way to print the descriptive page for each lesson? So that is a feature I know our development team continues to look at in being able to provide a PDF printable version of that web page. But the best I can suggest, and what works really great, is to use a screenshot or clipping tool, or just copy and paste the questions and prompts and things specifically that you would need to reference back to. Great question. We about the translation to Spanish. At this time, we do not have Spanish translated resources for the independent activities. So thank you for that question. It is definitely something we'll continue to bring to our development team as a way to continue to enhance the resource. All right. And with pricing information, we can always follow up if you want to, and I will put this slide up too. Feel free to email Crystal or I if there's any additional information that you want in terms of pricing or even setting up a follow-up conversation with you and how Ready Set Math can support your instructional needs in your district. But you, and I see that Crystal is also dropping in a link when you go to our website. I'm just going to jump into here. So when you go to our website, and where Crystal was referencing uh, on the Ready Set Math page down here at the bottom are frequently asked questions. And how much does it cost? Right here, when you open this up, it will bring you a pricing guide. So the pricing guide for each seat, it's $125. And again, you're going to see on this pricing guide that if you're purchasing for a department or a district or a building, there are thresholds of quantities. So if you're purchasing multiple seats, there's a pricing discount that is applied once you reach certain quantity thresholds. Okay, again, that is down here at the bottom of the FAQ page when you go to our Ready Set Math page. That gives lots of extra information there as well. Yeah, so great question. You do not need to purchase all of the modules. Purchasing of the modules is kind of an a la carte kind of way. So you can purchase just the fraction seats and just the fraction modules, or just the addition subtraction concepts as well. So that's what's kind of nice about this, and the number of seats that you purchase in each module. So you may have more educators that support the early number bands. So the modules, like the first 6 modules, you might have more teachers that need access to those instructional resources. So you can purchase more seats in those modules, and then you may have fewer teachers that are supporting the later number topics like the fraction, and you may not need as many seats in there. So when you put together your order, you're really selecting, you're ordering by seat in each individual module. Great question about rate of improvement when providing. How can we determine the average growth? So we continue to on our website about us, research and results and testimonials. This is where we'll continue to update any research and results with our white papers. I know the state of Michigan has done a lot of work with the implementation of Ready Set Math, with the resource being about 2 years like fully released. We continue to just collect and see ways that we can communicate with districts the impact and use of the resource as well. So we'll continue, but this would be the page to go to if you want to see those things. Oh, very good. So when you purchase the companion kit for the activity board box sets, those are, they're not necessarily when you think about laminated, like when you laminate things in your district, but they are heavy duty printed material that is a laminate. So like when there's things that, if you write on them with a dry erase marker, you can easily erase and wipe those off. I just personally uh, always suggest still even they make those really great sleeves for you to drop those in because it just extends the life of those boards. It keeps them nice and fresh and clean. But again, it is a laminate finish on the materials that are in that activity board box set. Okay. Pricing wise, the activity board box set and the manipulative kits, when you take a look at that pricing guide, it will give the breakdown. Each of those kits is a unique price, and why those prices differ for those companion kits is because it's fully dependent on what is included in those kits. So if you see a kit that's a little more pricey than others, it's because of the materials that are included in that kit. So just know that the cost of those kits are truly driven by the materials included. And again, I just want to stress and emphasize that those companion kits aren't aren't required for you to be able to facilitate the lessons and activities within the resource because of the ability to download and print all of the items that are included in that activity board box set. And then the manipulative kit includes, and if you are a district that is manipulative heavy, really take a look at what's included in those manipulative kits, and to be able to discern if those are manipulatives that you do or don't have access to. And then obviously then those manipulative kits would be really beneficial to much of the curricular resources or current resources and lessons supporting teachers with solid and really high quality instructional tools and manipulatives to support student learning. Oh, great question. So why is it that some of the subgoals, when you're looking at the resource, they're unlocked? So you're going to notice, and I'll jump back up here. You're going to notice at the top of the 10 modules, we have some free sample activities. So these free sample activities, you can explore, dig in, try with students. These are lessons and activities that are open for you to use. It's just a sampling of them though. So just making note of the fact that so there's a collection of lessons and activities from the first module, and then the second and third module, fourth and fifth module, sixth and seventh, nine and 10. So all of those lessons and activities are free for you to explore. And that's why when you open up some of the modules, some of those subgoals are going to have an or not have a lock on them because those are activities that may be accessible through the sample activities. Yeah, great question. So, do you advise using the AVMR assessments or the student knowledge checks for knowing confidently if students have a solid understanding of topics? Um, if you have been through our AVMR courses or specialist courses and you are using those assessments give you really great knowledge in order to make decisions about which module you would start at and where in the module you would start. So, using those math recovery assessments to help guide first, and then the student knowledge checks if there's any question or doubt of where to start. I would suggest then using those student knowledge checks as kind of follow up or to bring confirmation to where you are thinking your students are developmentally on those progressions. Great questions. I just want to make sure as I take a look that I haven't missed anything. Um, Again, we are coming up on the last 5 minutes of our time together. So we're going to continue to hang on here, but I do want to take some time to just say thank you. Thank you so much for jumping on this webinar with us. A recording of this webinar will be provided to all that registered for the webinar, so please watch for that in your email inbox. I also want to bring attention to the fact that we have support workshops helping educators kind of dig deeper into the resources, supporting targeted instruction, lesson planning. So we continue to develop workshops that are 90-minute live virtual workshops for you to work with one of our implementation coaches and dig deeper into the resources. So if you have access to the resources or know somebody at your district that have access to those resources, those workshops are being scheduled now. And as part of our summer promotion, they are free. So Crystal just dropped into chat the four workshops that are currently scheduled. And again, one of those workshops already kicks off and starts tomorrow. And then we have some additionally starting next week as well. Now, if they are full, have no worries. These workshops will again continue to be provided along with a number of other support workshops that have been developed as part of our supports for Ready Set Math. Again, as part of our summer promotion, they are free. And then down the road, they will continue to be developed as well as many other workshops that you can always find on our website under our events and in the workshop tab. And those workshops typically, if you do not have a level 3 membership, they're $40 a session for you. So it's a great way just to dig deeper into some specific content and learning. So we hope that you take advantage of those as well. And then here, please take note of our email addresses. Feel free to reach out to us directly. That's melissa@mathrecovery.org or crystal@mathrecovery.org. Use any one of our social media platforms through Instagram or Facebook. We have a lot of great educators that just love to post ways that they're using the resources, just things that they're finding and lessons learned and ways to organize resources. So lots of great things that can be shared through those social media platforms that just bring together a great educational network across the nation. All right. I'm going to take one more peek at our questions just to make sure I didn't miss anything. If that if you don't have any other questions, then thank you so much. And we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you all so much for the work that you continue to do for and with our students in growing and deepening the love for numeracy. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.